Good morning, everybody. We are live here for this morning's pre-market prep session. We didn't have sun literally at 8:39. We didn't have sun at 8:39, but the sun is out at 8:40, out in full force. So we're going back on with the shade week. But regardless, until then, you get the Stevie Wonder shades. Hope everybody had a great night's sleep. I got to sleep early. I popped my melatonin at like 7:45. And got some great sleep, woke up, got some morning yoga in. That's going to be part of my new morning routine. If you guys have implemented any new parts of your morning routine, drop it in the chat box below. Let me know. Then you probably need to implement some stretching. So I'm looking to now implement some stretching before I wake up, maybe before I go to sleep. But it just helps you a lot more, just health, like limber wise, just being more loose. So that's something I'm looking to integrate into my morning routine, apart from, the journaling, the prayer, all that good stuff. New place, need that new route. So I went ahead and scoped out a new route this morning that I really like. So tomorrow will be my first day on that. So I'm excited for that. Actually, let me see. Wednesday, no, tomorrow won't. Maybe we'll make it Friday. Got to be at Johns Hopkins tomorrow for a surgery, for my mom's surgery. So we got a lot going on, right? But I think it's all important in terms of recognizing that even though you got a lot of stuff going on, and it can be tough to take care of you, you still have to make sure that you're doing what you can to take care of you. Yes, good morning. Good morning. Greetings, kings and queens. I love how Detrice carries herself, always, addressing everyone with the utmost reverence and respect and just great energy. And that's something that, the universe returns to you for sure. But I go through all this to say that everybody can have like weeks where there's a lot going on in life. Just make sure you're tending to you and doing what you need to do in order to maintain your mental as well. This is definitely one of those weeks for me. My sister got her car totaled by a drunk driver a few days ago. That's been a mess. My parents have been out of town, so I've been trying to help her with that. She's okay. Went to the hospital, got checked out, but she's fine. My girlfriend's out of town, so I'm holding down the homestead as well as trying to help family because the parents are out of town. The parents got delayed coming back into town. They finally got back in late last night / early this morning. I've got my mom having surgery tomorrow. So it's just, you'll have times in life, and everybody does, where there's a lot going on. And you just got to make sure that you do what you can in order to kind of sustain yourself, right? And throw a 3 in the chat if you understand that. That's super important because it can bleed into other areas of your life. So if you need a beat, take a beat, right? If you need some time, take some time. I had some food that messed my stomach up yesterday. So I was literally like doubled over the majority of the day and still having to run around and get stuff done. So I'm feeling good. Drank a crap ton of ginger tea yesterday. My stomach feels good, under control. I slept well as opposed to the night before where I was tossing and turning because of my stomach. So, we all have adversity. We all have things that we have to go through. And there are times where if you let the adversity get to you, right, and you let yourself get in your own head, you can crumble. But it's important to make sure that you understand that you have the power in order to make sure that you have a great day, that you have a great life, despite what adversity, comes to you, and despite how much is put on your plate. Because even though you might not let everyone know that, right, everybody still has a lot that they're facing, right? In some weeks, it might be tougher than others. But you got to reach out to whatever supports you have. And part of that is looking deeper within yourself in order to find that support, but also looking to others, those you can trust, right? Because you can't be out telling your business to everybody, but reach out to others, in order to have them kind of lend you their strength as well. So that's really what it's about, right? Taking the time to make sure that you are in a space where you can build up your own inner strength, as well as, reach out to those if you need it. And oftentimes you do just need to talk through what's going on, but reach out to those when it's necessary to draw strength from them as well, because we all go through tough times, but tough times don't last, right? Tough people do. When you have people depending on you, you got to show up. So all you're trying to do each and every day is show up. So I just speak about whatever's on my heart before we get started as people roll in. And that was something that was on my heart today. I try and be open with you guys as much as, is necessary, and what matters the most, and whatever's affecting me. And maybe it'll touch you as well, because I know everybody's going through stuff, right? And it can maybe help you in what you're doing as well. But if you need to take a beat, gather yourself, right? And just do what's best for you, right? So if that's going to sleep by 8 p.m. tonight, right? It did me great good waking up this morning feeling refreshed getting some head clearing time in, right? If you need to do that, right? And just make sure that you're supporting yourself as well, because that is absolutely huge, because that affects everything you do, your work, right? Your relationships, all of it, it bleeds into it. So self-care, people, self-care is huge. Now, in terms of our top news here, we got a pretty short report this morning, so it shouldn't take us a whole lot of time to get through it. Top news, ending the drought. Things are starting to defrost for the IPO market after being frozen for much of the past 18 months. Wasn't a very, nice time to IPO. Faced with rising interest rates, investors dumped high-flying growth companies by turning to more profitable alternatives. But as the rotation turns the corner, sentiment is now boiling over to public listings. The recent successful IPO of Mediterranean restaurant chain Cava, which I made a reel about. If you did not see that, go check that out. Continues to cook up optimism among issuers and bankers, with the stock soaring 107% over its initial pricing in less than 2 weeks of trading. On tap, set to debut this morning, is Korean barbecue group Gen Restaurant, ticker Gen K, GENK is the ticker, which is hoping to replicate the success of Cava. While it's a smaller IPO, there are another 4 listings this week that are set to raise over $300 million each. The largest is Vesta Real Estate, ticker VTMX, which develops and manages industrial properties in Mexico. But Seeking Alpha investing group leader Donovan Jones is cautious about the company given the history of depreciation of the peso against the dollar. Other big deals to watch are Kodiak Gas Services, ticker KGS, a natural gas compression outfit based in Texas, as well as for-profit thrift store operator Savers Value Village and special insurer and reinsurer Fidelis. Now, another sign of how the market is broadening is that each of the coming IPOs is from a different sector. Many conversations are also taking place across the exchanges, centering around whether now is the time to gear up and go. Quote, "My phone is already ringing," declared New York Stock Exchange President Lynn Martin, adding there are plenty of green shoots. She's also encouraged by signs of demand from institutional investors and noted one particular industry that has had a very positive reception. Now, bullish signs for those looking for exposure to the broader IPO market. The Renaissance IPO ETF, whose ticker is IPO, has returned 32% this year compared to the 14% gain of the S&P 500. Renaissance Capital has even counted 46 U.S. IPOs year to date, up 21% from the same period last year. And firms have raised proceeds of $7.6 billion, up 91% from a year ago. While the Fed has recently suggested it would raise rates 2 more times in 2023, it did opt for a skip during its June meeting and is definitely taking its foot off the accelerator. Investors might also be eager to consider discounts or bargains on new shares now that a recovery has been seen in many of the beaten down names on Wall Street. Speaking of the Fed, right, we've got Jerome Powell today at 9:30 a.m., right, as the market opens, right? So make sure that you are aware of that. You factor that into your plans. You can tune into that just by saying watch Jerome Powell live, and it'll come up somewhere, whether that's on YouTube or Google, wherever. Everybody will be broadcasting it, so you can watch that and watch him, kind of stumble and trip over his words, and see how that affects markets. Again, we're in a reconnaissance mode right now, right? Throw an 8 in the chat if you know what reconnaissance means. We're in that mode where we're gathering information, gathering intelligence in order to see what the next high probability move is. And that's really what mode we're going to be in from now until the end of the week, right? The end of the week is when we get that close on the monthly candle. That's when we'll get a lot more information about what to expect next. But for right now, we're getting a lot of unexpected. And whenever you get a lot of unexpected, you want to sit. You don't want to keep trying to force the envelope, right? Sit, gather information, gather intelligence, and then make a good move, right? We have the majority of the time in markets where markets seem to be pretty easy, right? Markets seem to be pretty easy. You make crush plays, multiple hundreds of percent, and you're fine. And then there are other times when it's like there's markets going this way, markets going that way. It's not doing what it is likely to be doing. And then you need to take a beat and say, okay, let me center myself, figure out, okay, what is going on here? Take that time and then move when it's time to strike, right? Because it can be tough whenever there is, the 20% of times where things are tougher, right? And you're like, oh man, I'm used to life being on easy mode, right? Meta, 600% profit, SPY, Tesla, right? All these things crushing at hundreds of percent profit, coin, hundreds of percent profit. And then, you come across days like yesterday, days like 2 days ago, really this week, Monday, Tuesday, where it's like, okay, we fall to high probability bounce zone, don't bounce, and then the next day when we're least probable to bounce, we do bounce, and it's on low volume until we get a little stretch of non-negligible volume by the end of the day, right? So it's one of those times where when you see something that start act weird, you say, okay, I'm going to fall back, right? Speaking of drunk drivers, and throw a 3 in the chat, just praising the Lord that my sister's okay. That's huge also. And I was just very grateful for that, even though we got to figure out, kind of what to do with her and get her back and forth to work. Throw a 3 in the chat because the Lord is good. And, to anybody out there who's thinking about drunk driving, don't do it, man. Just call an Uber. But, it's kind of like when you are on the road, and all of us have probably been on the road before, where you encounter somebody who's driving incoherently. They're like swerving, right, drifting, and you're like, do you try and just go beside them and drive with them and look over and say, hey, what is this guy doing? No. You take a beat, you back up, and you say, what is going on with this person? Let me figure out what are the patterns, how are they moving? And then I pass them because I don't want to be behind you with you acting like that. I don't know what you could do. So I'm going to sit back, right, observe. And then when I see you swerve over to opposite side of me, right, I'm going, you right around the other side. That's where I'm headed. So you kind of want to treat the market exactly like that, and just make sure that, you are taking the time to understand, okay, you've been acting crazy. What are you doing? Right? What are you doing? And then once I get a beat on that, we can execute. And with all the craziness that's going on too, with Powell speaking today, Powell speaking tomorrow, data coming out, no shame in taking this week and being like, okay, hey, let's gather ourselves and see where the heck we're at. Because what you don't want to do is keep trying when you don't have a good handle on things, right? You don't want to just keep pushing buttons and, keep trying to push forward. Especially because there's a lot of news that seems to be coming out this week, especially with chips, right? So we've got Micron, who reports earnings today after market close. That is probably the most intriguing earnings this week because we all know every chip company really has rocketed on the back of AI sentiment for their earnings. Will Micron do the same? We'll see. If you got a little money that you want to gamble, maybe you put it on Micron calls, right? Because of what has happened with NVIDIA, with AMD, with the rest. But also recognize that, as always, earnings is a complete crapshoot, right? So that doesn't guarantee you anything. But we had news that came overnight that destroyed the chip sector, right? So for everybody who went and bought the dip on NVIDIA yesterday, and they're like, oh, NVIDIA is finally moving, even though it was one of the weaker ones, the weaker techs yesterday, NVIDIA is finally moving. Those got thrashed today, right? And overnight. Why? Because of this next portion, this next story that we're talking about here. So export curbs. The U.S. is reportedly weighing new curbs on AI chip exports to China, marking the latest fight in the battle over silicon. Leasing of cloud services to Chinese AI companies may also be restricted, as well as other restraints on U.S. investment in China. So the news push, this is the ambulance coming to pick up anybody who swung NVIDIA calls overnight. So the news pushed chip stocks lower before the bell, led by AMD and NVIDIA. The latter's A800, so that's A, the letter, not 88, A800 chips, which were launched in response to last year's export rules, could be included in the new measures. So basically, obviously, AI is exploding, and what does the U.S. not want? China's AI to explode with it, because we know all China cares about is competition and dominance. They will not care about putting any type of restrictions on AI. All they want is more advanced AI than us. So that's what they're going to be striving for, and the United States does not want that to happen. So they're limiting AMD and NVIDIA because of that. And, that is something that could definitely affect their bottom line. So NVIDIA set the bar really high when they talked about their, what they expect in terms of revenue this year and moving forward because of AI. That could put a huge dent in it. I mean, you not being able to import, send those chips to China, that could definitely affect the bottom line, right? Because that is one of the biggest economies in the world. So, we'll see how, the chip stocks deal with that. But they're really trying to just lock down any loopholes that could allow China to get their hands on some of these chips. I mean, to be honest, there are American companies that probably shouldn't get their hands on some of these chips. So, I am definitely in favor of that. It's just annoying that it affects, these chip stocks, but we'll see. Maybe they bounce back, and close the gap. Maybe they don't. Only time and price action will tell. Now, in terms of financials news here, stress test. The Federal Reserve is set to release the results of its annual bank stress test later today, following a recent banking crisis triggered by Silicon Valley Bank. Despite the regional bank failures, experts anticipate the 23 lenders being tested will show capital in excess of regulatory minimums, securing their buybacks and dividends. The stress tests the stress test results will likely have fewer surprises as banks have learned to navigate the process more smoothly, said Seeking Alpha analyst Steven Simpson. Quote, the bigger unknowns are tied to Basel IV implementation and new post SVB rules. So we see banks, kind of trying to get things in order here. Haven't really checked on finance too much as of recent. Let's see here. Overall sector still beaten down. They try to make something shake, but nothing is really holding. Let's see how some of these are having. Yeah, just kind of still struggling. So maybe the stress test will be something to help banks out. In order to make something shake. They have earnings, right? We got earnings for Goldman Sachs and some of the other banks coming up in July, like mid-July. So July 19th for Goldman. So that's really the next time that we'll get like kind of in-depth information on these, finance stocks. But these stress tests super important. They pretty much say, okay, can this bank stand the waves, right? Can it stand the waves? Can it withstand, all the tumultuous activity that can come possibly in the next 6 months, right? Can it withstand the things that Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic Bank and the rest of these banks could not withstand? And it's very important, right? All those more stringent rules to just bring the reins in on these people. And continuing in the financial sector, dropping the axe 3 months after Credit Suisse, whose ticker is CS, Credit Suisse's government orchestrated rescue of UBS. They're likely to fire over half of the Swiss lenders' employees starting in July. Sheesh, talk about trimming the fat. That's not even trimming the fat. That's trimming everything. The fat, the internal organs, the brain, right? That's trimming it all. Among those bearing the brunt of the layoffs include bankers, traders, and support staff. 2 more rounds of cuts have been tentatively planned for September and October as UBS seeks to save $6 billion in employee expenses over the coming years. The developments follow layoffs at investment banking giants, including Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs, and Citigroup amid a slowdown in merger and acquisition activity. Banks don't do as well when companies aren't buying other companies. In order to buy other companies, companies use banks, right? They use banks because they use OPM, other people's money, right? So when there's not these huge deals going through, which they haven't because the FTC and the SEC have been all over it, right? When NVIDIA can't acquire ARM, when Microsoft can't acquire Activision, right? When, Frontier can't acquire Spirit or whatever those crusty airlines that were merging earlier this year, right? When that can't happen, these banks miss out on money. They miss out on the ability to make deals. And it affects their bottom line. So I just looked and I've got this little grain of, I don't even know what it is, maybe paper inside of my iPhone screen. I got to get that out there. In terms of today's markets, kind of mixed bag here. We're looking like it's green everywhere except for here. So in terms of today's markets in Asia, Japan up 2%, Hong Kong up 0.1%, China flat, India up 0.8%. The footy in London up 0.7%, Paris up 0.9%, Frankfurt up 0.8%, the S&P down 0.1%, basically flat. The Dow is flat, NASDAQ down 0.3%. Crude oil up 0.4%, gold down 0.4%, Bitcoin down 1% to 30,348 as it was kind of pushing 31,000. Today's economic calendar, we get retail inventories, wholesale inventories at 8:30 a.m. So those have already passed. Powell speaking at the European Central Bank Forum. That's a big thing, right? Again, it all varies. If it's a pre-prepared speech, then it might not have as much effect. We've got to see. Again, the market likes to use Powell's speeches as cover to make the moves that it was planning to make anyways. So we'll see kind of how this all plays in and all amalgamates together in order to create whatever monthly finish we have by the end of this week. Now, let's see here. Survey business, uncertainty. Okay. All right. So Powell, that's the big thing, right? In 30 minutes, we got him coming on and flexing those meat flaps. As he loves to just inject his market-affecting CO2 with every exhale that he makes. What else is happening? Regeneron, ticker REGN, stumbles after FDA rejects high-dose Elia. Walgreens Boots Alliance, ticker WBA, under pressure from earnings outlook. Walgreens has just been struggling ever since, was it California that tried to cancel Walgreens because they took abortion medication off the shelves or something? I feel like they've been really, really struggling ever since then. Fidelity is latest Wall Street titan to join spot Bitcoin ETF race. Again, what do you see? You see news that starts to come out in the direction of what the charts were already saying. Remember during the challenge, we talked about how Bitcoin had fired that weekly inverse head and shoulders, right? We talked about that previously before in the pre-market prep sessions. Throw a 2 in the chat if you recall me mentioning that at any point over the past few weeks. It retraced right off the news of the Binance being sued and Coinbase being sued. It retraced that weekly inverse head and shoulders breakout. That was prime time to buy Bitcoin. Right now, Bitcoin held it, reversed back up, and is heading higher. As a result, you see Bitcoin and crypto related tickers start to push. What do we do as a result of that? Get into Coinbase, right? We leverage Coinbase for over 100% on beautifully orchestrated call swings right earlier this week. And if you held any runners, those are up even more because Coinbase went ahead and also rocketed again yesterday, right? Yesterday overnight and into the morning as a result of this spot Bitcoin ETF news. So in terms of Coinbase, right, when we talked about that daily breakout, you get calls 2 weeks out or a month out. If you got calls a month out for that, longer swing going up to price target number 2, those are doing very nicely because that is the fourth point here in our rapid fire rundown is Coinbase benefits as Bitcoin resumes its ascent. But of course, Coinbase had already gotten that breakout, right? So the buyers are already in control there. They're already pushing it. Coinbase gave nice chance to re-enter as well on calls. And after we even got out and took profit, gave another chance to get back in. I believe, Alicia, you DM'd me saying that you got back in there. So made for, second round of nice day trade opportunity if you took the time to leverage those charts and take advantage of that as well. Let's see here. Airline stocks rip higher as Delta sees strong travel demand. So airline stocks might be something worth taking a look at, right? We can see here. Oh, yeah, Delta really ripping. DAL. Let's check out AAL. So banks and airlines typically like to move together, but also they like to move for like a couple days at a time. Looks like American Airlines fired a really nice bull flag yesterday. Looking quite good there with a big, strong day and breakout on the back of Delta's earnings news. So it looks like breakout for American Airlines was 1672. If we could retrace that, that would be a beautiful spot for AAL calls. But in the meantime, right, let's see here. It looks like we're testing yesterday's hourly high. If we reject that, there's possibility for a double top. If we lose, let's see here. If we lose 1712 on American Airlines, AAL, we can fire that double top. If we lose that on the hourly, we close above 1748 on the hourly, then AAL can continue to push. And there are a ton of different airlines, right? So Southwest is LUV, Love. So check out whichever one you like to trade, whichever one has contracts, their size, the way you like to have your contract size. Airlines typically have pretty cheap contracts, at least AAL. If I remember, a lot of theirs are under $100. Yeah, well under it. So, I mean, you can get AAL contracts calls for next week for $13, right? So airlines, very, very cheap to trade, especially AAL. So something for beginners that you can kind of focus on and get some real reps under your belt. Now, let's see here. Consolidation. Google lays off staff at mapping app Waze. Trucking shares rally with potential Yellow, ticker YELL, bankruptcy factored in. Russia poised to surpass Saudi Arabia as China's top oil supplier. I don't doubt it, right? Russia is trying to sell as much oil as possible to finance this war. Heat waves seen driving generator demand, and then home builder and construction stocks in focus on higher home prices. So might be worth checking out like industrials. That's XLI, right? So maybe like a Honeywell, and there are a couple of different like construction-based stocks. But overall, industrial is looking good, right? If we check the XLI ETF, looking solid for them. It's just holding above that 104 area on the weekly, 104 to 104.18. But looking nice. Industrial is looking good and poised. Looking good on the weekly. Let's check the monthly. Looking pretty solid on the monthly too. It's just that monthly resistance at around 108 on XLI, but it's got a huge monthly bull flag, right? That it looks to be firing or trying to fire, right? So we've got a smaller monthly bull flag here with breakout around 104. And then it looks like we'll get that breakout, but will we be able to get the ultimate breakout above 107.88? That's the key. So that's really what we're looking for. We can get a case of cascading bullish patterns, but we got to get that breakout first, because looking at our strength indicators, we do have significantly less strength than the time that we tried to test this 108 area previously on XLI, which is just the industrial ETF, right? So looking at industrials, and then there's like construction ETFs specifically, but overall looking at industrials, just because I'm here checking out that chart, you want to get over kind of this 107.88, 108 area. If not, you're at risk for a double top. But looking good so far. If it can close over 104.18 here by the end of this week, which represents the end of the month as well. And that is our last point, right? Our last point for the rapid fire bullet point rundown, and our last point for this morning's pre-market prep session. Looks like cool, awesome. Sun went away, or at least clouds came out. So we can ditch the glasses for the end of the session. Congratulations, you got 1% better, right? Just by being here, by tuning in, by picking up on the little nuggets that are placed down throughout these very, very valuable sessions. So congratulations to you for tuning in, getting 1% better. Remember to remain patient, right? PAYTIENT. Remain patient with the market, remain patient with yourself. And that's the way that you win continuously, win more often than you lose, right? By making sure you're adhering to the system, adhering to the correct mindset, right? And staying in that mind space where you're ready to execute when it is necessary. So we'll see what Powell's talking about at 9:30 a.m. That's, of course, going to be the most important thing we got going on today. And other than that, guys, have a great rest of your day. I'll see you back here. Actually, tomorrow morning, I won't. Surgery starts at like 7 a.m. Going to be at Johns Hopkins Hospital down the road. So everybody, prayers are, accepted. Most definitely. I appreciate all the belief, all the goodwill, all that good stuff. My mom's a warrior, and she will continue to be a warrior. She has plenty of amazing things left to do in life. I firmly believe that. And tomorrow will be the first step, toward her total healing, and restoration. So I'm believing that's already started. Throw a 5 in the chat if you agree as well. But I will be there. I'll be at Johns Hopkins pretty much all day tomorrow. Going to be an 8-hour surgery. So I'll be there in support of her. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So no pre-market prep tomorrow. I don't know if I will trade. I likely won't, but we'll see. If I end up staying there all day, I might have the chance to come back home, picking up Bailey from the airport as well. So we'll see kind of what that ends up shaking out with. But at the least, we will be back here on Friday, right? So we'll be back on Friday, ready to rock and roll. Yes, I appreciate that. Appreciate that, Detrice. Much love. And thank you very much, right? Again, it's important to remember that while we're here for markets and money, there are things in life that are much more important than money. Does not matter how much money I make trading markets, if my mom's not okay, or if my family's not okay. So at the end of the day, that always supersedes whatever the heck else is going on in life. Trading, backseat, right? My sister's health, her being safe, that's in the front seat, right? My mom's health, that's front seat. So make sure you keep everything in perspective, and have a great week, everybody. Appreciate you. And let's get to it. Peace.